Today on You're Buying a Home with Silas Lindenstein, we're talking about 21 questions you should ask before buying a home. Hey everybody, welcome to You're Buying a Home with Silas Lindenstein. I am your host, Silas Lindenstein. This is episode number 32. Episode number 32 of this wonderful podcast, and thank you so much for all the feedback I've been getting. I've been getting some great feedback on the show, and it's made me so happy. So thank you, first of all, for doing that. Emails, the reviews, all that. If you're just listening, my name is Silas Lindenstein. I'm a real estate agent in the Seattle, Washington area. But hey, even if you're not from the Seattle, Washington area, this podcast is still for you. This podcast is all about empowering and educating home buyers all over the nation. Yes, we say things a little differently in some states than others. Minor differences, a few different forms that your local real estate agent professional can walk you through. But otherwise, buying a house is buying a house. So you're gonna get it, right? You're gonna learn. You'll get those things corrected, and you can listen to this podcast wherever you're from, whatever state, whether you're in Florida, Michigan, Ohio, Texas, Colorado. Just listen. I'll answer your questions if you listen to this episode. And hey, today's episode number 32 is the 21 questions to ask before buying a house. Now, I've covered some of these before. A couple of these are new. Get a little more in depth in a couple, but if you're calling, or if you're watching, or we're videotaping this, if you are listening because you just want the step-by-step how to buy a home, the first 10 episodes of this podcast are the step-by-step. So go to yourbuyingahome.com or your favorite Apple podcast provider like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to the first 10 episodes, and those are the step-by-step. Okay? Now, if you would rather read them than listen to them, I do have an ebook called The Ultimate Guide for Buying a Home. And I'll send that out to you for free, no obligation, wherever you live in the United States. Just email me and email me at silas@silasgetsreal.com. Okay. And ask me, hey, could I get your ultimate guide for buying a home, or can I get your ebook? It's a PDF file. I'll say sure. And if you tell me where you're from, what state, what city are you from? I'm trying to keep track of this stuff because at some point in the future, that data will be important on things that I produce and create. So let me know what state you're from, or what city and state you're from. And I'd really appreciate that. Then, if you have an agent, or if you don't have an agent, rather, if you are looking for a real estate agent to help you with the process at whatever step, whether you're a year out or 2 months out, if you need an agent, also email me at silas@silasgetsreal.com. Over the last few years, I've made a network of amazing real estate professionals. I would love to set you up with one. You email me, say, Silas, I need an agent in this area. We'll ask you a few questions, and then I will do an email exchange with a group introduction with somebody that I think is best for you in that area. And then, and that's it. We'll exchange info, get you the info, then you're set. You don't have to use them, but it'd be nice. At least get you somebody. And lastly, the one thing I'm going to ask, if you like the podcast, could I ask you please go to Apple Podcasts and leave 5 stars, leave a nice review, and share it. That'd be wonderful. Reviews on Apple Podcasts help me so much more than almost anything else. So I'd really appreciate it if you were able to do that. That'd be fantastic. Okay, and that's it. So let's get into this. Episode number 32, 21 questions to ask before buying a house. Okay. First one is the longest. Okay. These are the things that you're going to need. So what? We got the property price itself, right? $300,000. Let's say it's that $300,000 home. You got that price, right? You will also be paying mortgage interest on that. Those are your primary expenses each month that you're paying on it, right? We know this. Okay. That's stuff you probably already know. But there are some other things when you're first buying a home. And we've talked about in previous episodes how closing costs can get paid by the seller. So don't worry that a lot of this is coming out of your pocket. There's only really one thing that's going to become big out of your pocket. First off, appraisal. So appraisal is the people who come out and determine the actual value of the house. They're sent by the bank, a third party, not connected to the bank, but they come and they'll decide, I think this house is worth $330 or $300 or whatnot. But that's going to cost you a few $100s, and that'll be tagged onto your closing costs. In some cases, they won't need an appraisal if you paid low enough. If the price was low enough and you put 20% down, they can just do it real quick on their computer and it'll waive it, depending on the bank. A lot of different things, but but it's a few $100s. You should know that's going to cost. Inspections are something they can range in cost. That's something you are going to have to pay out of your pocket early on. And after you're in contract, ideally after you're in contract is when you'll do it. Now they can range from $200 to $700 to $900 even dollars. Usually I see them about $300 to $400. Now it all depends on the age of the home. The older it is, the more expensive it can be because they're going to have to do a lot more. Depends on the size of the house. Size and age are the primary. Is it a condo? Is it a single family home? Those are going to help determine the price. So I can't tell you that Tony charges $250. Tony charges $250. That's it. No. Okay. So then here are two things I want to clarify. Homeowners insurance and mortgage insurance. Homeowners insurance is going to be the insurance that an insurance company puts on the home in case it burns down. That's going to be worked into your closing costs. It's going to work into your monthly mortgage payment. People always want to know, how do I save money on that? Usually if you can bundle it with whomever is your car insurance or that kind of thing, usually they're cheaper. So just check there first. You can shop around too, feel free, but it does get a bit time sensitive about when you have the insurance bound on it. So that's that insurance. So that'll be part of your monthly payment. And then there's mortgage insurance. Now, mortgage insurance is that insurance that you pay to the lender because you didn't have 20% down on the home. So because you have 20% down, depending on how much of the loan is outstanding or how much you still owe, how big of the loan it is will be how much it, like personally, like I have like a $350 mortgage insurance a month until I have 20% equity. And then that drops. So that can be once I've paid it off in the normal fashion, or a refinance, and then the house is considered worth more. I have 20% in equity in the home, then they would not charge me mortgage insurance. It's because once you have over 20%, the likelihood is you can sell the home and get that much. You'll have the money to pay off the bank. So that's why they charge it. So, but that's going to be an extra payment if you have less than 20, and it doesn't, it's not a tax write-off. It's just mortgage insurance. It's the one that, don't let it stop you from buying a house. Some people it does, and I think it's ridiculous because rent just keeps going away. So that never comes back either, but it's just something to be aware of. Okay. Then there's taxes. That will be included in your monthly payment usually. Some people buy a home without it. Usually those are just cash. Usually the banks want to make sure that's getting taken out of your check every month. But so property taxes go up in the city you're in, your mortgage can go up. So yeah, if it goes up $10 a month on average, that's how much it's going to go up in your that is going to go up in your monthly payment. And they'll give you plenty of notification that it's gonna, but that is extra money you're gonna pay. And then the one that's more voluntary usually is HOA fees. So if you live in a place that has HOA fees, you're gonna pay those. They're typically around $200 to $300 a month is the typical. You'll find some places that are only like $50, but they don't do anything. And there's sometimes they're decent. Sometimes it's good because you know everything's going to get taken care of, right? Let's see. And then that's it. That was a long one, but that's the longest of this. Second of the 21 questions to ask. What's included in the sale? Are appliances included? That's the washer and dryer is the common one that people want to take because they usually put some good money into it if they've been there a while or weren't expecting to leave. So see if those are included in the sale. Sometimes there's no refrigerator. Sometimes they want to take the oven. Then there's other things like curtains in Washington State. They buy the standard contract, have to stay. They used to not only be stuff that was actually attached to the wall. So you want to know both are you going to need to buy new drapes for this whole place or not? I mean, they shouldn't take them, but what if they do? Are you going to sue them? I don't know. Maybe you will. But the big thing now I tell people about is the Ring doorbell. Ring, RING. It's the one that has a video camera at the doorbell. People are putting those on. Now, the moment they attach it to the house, it really should stay. So I tell my clients when selling a house, if they want to keep that, they need to take it off for the house sale before that goes. Or it needs to be written into the contract that you're taking it. So look around look around the house, see anything that's attached. It probably should stay, but they might try to get away with it. If there's a car in the driveway and you want to try to keep it, just ask for the car. You probably won't, but who knows? Never know. But yeah, if there's anything at that house that you want to make sure stays, just put it in the contract. How long has the house been on the market? It's a seller's market, so it's kind of crazy, right? So usually things go in a week or two. Usually if it's less than 21 days, sellers are not going to drop the price. Usually. Sometimes they do, but usually they won't drop the price if it's been 21 days. So you can't expect to go in $100,000 over asking when it's been on the market for 6 days. That's not realistic. When you're after 90, even in a even market, the sellers seriously will start looking at lower offers in most of the time, unless they just can't. Or they're extremely stubborn. That could happen too. But that's when they're more willing, probably going to entertain something like maybe 10% less than they're asking, that kind of thing. So something to consider as you're racking in your brain what to offer. Next question. Why is the seller moving out? Now, they don't have to tell you. They don't at all have to tell you. Doesn't always help them to tell you, but you can always ask. Sometimes they slip out or they don't care. Sometimes they're buying a house and you're like, because you want to know, like, you just bought this like a year and a half ago. Why are you selling it now? And it turns out their significant other got a job in LA and now they want to move there to be with them. So you're like, oh, I get that. Sometimes they gotta go. There's a death or something. It doesn't hurt to ask. And then by doing that, if you know, then you can sort of gauge what their well, what should I say? How motivated they are to sell. Some reasons make it extremely motivating to sell. So, how much have nearby homes sold for? So, your agent should have this information, but you can be checking it out. You should have an idea on how much similar homes in the area and non-similar to a degree have sold for in the area, because that's how you know if the offer, one, if the listing price seems fair, or if what you want to offer seems fair and unreasonable. Like, I'll often have clients that'll say something like, they want to offer 100,000 under list price. And I know the house is probably going to go for even over list price based on what's sold in the area, because it would be priced lower. The only time it works is if the listing agent wasn't very good and got a really low price on it, went too low. So, but know the market, know the area. And that way you feel a little more confident too at the suggestions from your agent. Or depending on the agent, there's some agents that are really hands off and they'll say stuff like they just want you to pick it because they don't want to feel responsible. So, but that's how you know how much a house is worth. Know what's sold nearby, as similar of homes as possible for that offer. How much do utilities cost? That's a great one. Just to get a sense, and I even do this after it's in contract, just to get someone has an idea or whatnot. But especially if you don't know, like you've never been a gas, you've never had gas before as a stove. How much does that change things? It's not a bad question to ask. It is something you're going to pay every month. So just shoot out, see if they'll answer. Some people have that prepared. Okay. Here's a couple questions about the people you'll work with. Is the real estate agent familiar with your target market? And this is what I go back and forth with. I always say to lean toward an agent you trust anyway, but are they familiar? See, this really varies by geography. Here in Seattle, I cover a big area, but not distance wise. Like you see it's only 15 miles, right? That all across most of Seattle. It's like 15 miles, maybe. Not much. If you're in a huge city, sprawling city, Los Angeles and the suburbs, you may want someone who focuses a little bit more. Some areas that I've listened to, people are buying homes that if you're going to make it as a real estate agent, you got to travel like 45 minutes to get to almost anywhere. So most data's online, so I guess it's partly, do you really need your agent to know where the best coffee shop is? Right next to that house? How big of an area are you looking into? Because if you're all over the place, you can't be, first of all, don't be picking different agents for different neighborhoods. That's kind of rude, first of all. But just pick an agent that does cover all the areas that you would possibly look at or has sold there. And if they haven't, ask them why you think they would do well there. Sometimes they just haven't sold in an area. Like, it took me forever to sell in Seattle proper. I was selling everywhere outside of Seattle because when I first started, because nobody could afford to live in Seattle. I was meeting, everyone was living in the suburbs. It took me forever to finally get that one. And then, it took off from there. But I knew, it's funny, the areas that I knew like the back of my hand, I wasn't selling at first. It was kind of funny. Is your mortgage broker responsive? So the average mortgage takes about 30 to 42 days to close, right? So you want someone who's really good at replying to you, and you'll learn that early on when you're emailing them questions about your a loan getting pre-approved. You'll see how quick they respond. And the ones who don't respond tend to have a reputation for it, and who you have as a lender can make a difference. So that's why I always say talk to an agent to recommend somebody, because in your area, And I got people I can recommend too that cover a lot of different states. Just check with me, Silas at silasgetsreal.com. And but like if a certain credit unions in the area or banks are known for being really slow or versus somebody who's known, it's like, oh, that's a good loan officer. That's a good company. That can make the difference on, like a tie of offers. Here's something a lot of people don't do. What is the property's history of insurance claims? What is the property's history of insurance claims? So you can go, as soon as you know the house, you're going to throw it to your insurance people and they will be able to tell you if there's been past claims on it for whatever, like if there's been water damage or whatever. They'll have the history of it. So, and they usually get to you if you don't know something. And sometimes homes, yeah, like if they were lying or keeping stuff and turns out there's a bunch of flood insurance or flood claims on it, I'll let you know and figure out if that's been fixed or what's going on. So as quick as possible, you want to know that. You really can't find that out until you have under contract, but you can have something in your contract about it. Next, does the house pose any health or safety hazards that wouldn't be found in an inspection? There's a few things that you want to think about that an inspector can't find. They're looking for signs of it, but they probably won't be able to. One, I hate to even bring this one up, but lead paint. Look, before 1978, yeah, there was lead in paint, and it's in homes. It's on homes. There's a lead insurance disclosure you'll get before buying a home, like if it's built before the 78. I'll tell you this. Don't chew paint. Don't let your kids chew paint. But I've never had anyone actually do the lead test, but like I've never even heard of anyone asking for a lead test. It would be crazy. I don't know the cost even, but it'd be a crazy thing to hold on for. But it's not a bad thing to check, certainly once you are into a home. You check it out, especially if you're going to plan to do any remodeling. You can just take some paint chips and send them into somewhere. So that's what I would worry about. I wouldn't worry about it beforehand. Not really, but it's up to you. It's totally up to you. Asbestos. We've heard that word. It's bad. A lot of old homes have it. Some of it doesn't matter. Asbestos doesn't leak into the air, unless if you break something, if you break into a wall that has asbestos, then it can come out. Or if you start scraping popcorn ceilings, do not do that. Let the professional do that, or at least make sure it's tested before you do. Asbestos, they won't be able to tell, but there's some glass that's made out of asbestos and it's really actually cool looking. And as long as you're not licking it or going to break it or, it's not bad, but it's the popcorn ceilings are the big one. If you're going to remodel, you may need to do an asbestos test. But again, a seller's market, you're going to have to do that. It's another thing after you're in, you're going to get it. Radon in some areas. I don't really have radon where I am, so I don't really deal with it much. But radon's a thing. You can look it up. You can Google that radon. I know they do them in California, test a lot. So ask your agent if radon is a problem. Ask your real estate professional if radon is right for you. Mold is a tough one. It's the scariest word in real estate, probably, right? Mold. Sometimes you can see signs. Sometimes you can't. And then you can't even blame anyone because it was hidden. It was in the rafters or something. Just make sure that house just seems tight, right? Trust, and you can call for extra inspections if need be. If there's a suspicion from your inspector, if it's in your contract, right, you should have additional days to go get someone to inspect stuff like mold if you're worried about it. Especially the bad mold. Some really bad molds, not like blue cheese, bad ones, black mold, scary. But they don't, just because you had inspection doesn't mean it was caught. Infestations. So infestations like rats, mice, that kind of thing. There's usually telltale signs of it. It's honestly usually it's pretty easy to deal with. Sometimes if they gotten into some of the insulation, that can cost you some, but those are things you need to look for. Then, of course, are there any problems in the house? Have there ever been? That's another question. This is, they're supposed to declare if they know of any. Like here in Washington, it's a Form 17 disclosure. Discloses any problems they've known about the house. So trust them. Hope they're telling the truth. You ask the agent, see if the agent knows. You probably won't ever talk to the owner, but if you have a chance, you can always ask them anything you need to know, anything about this house. And if the agent knows about it, they have to tell you by rules in most states. So they'll tell you because they don't want to get caught trying to hide something that's really bad. Okay, now I got a few questions on what to ask about the house condition. Has the house seen any additions or major renovations? So has it, since they've owned it, has it had any additions or renovations? And you can always ask for the receipts, any info they have on those, just to see what was done. You want to see if it was permitted, what was done. Looking for permits, mainly to make sure it was done safe, right? How old is the roof? That's a good one to know the expense. When's it going to come up? Roofs can last 20 years, 30 years. About that, somewhere in there. So want to know how soon that roof there is going to be up for renewal. Because it can be a significant cost. Repair can get negotiated too. So don't freak out about how old the roof is. How old are the major appliances and systems? So we're talking furnace, stove, that if they know the years, that's great. Usually you can tell, but like a couple of things. Hot water heaters have like a 15 to 20 year life is what I'm told. So if you want to know if it's 19 years old, you're going to want to replace it when you get in there. Furnace, same thing. You're going to want to know how old it is. If it's a 15 to 20 year cycle, when is it? When are you on that cycle? How big is the water heater? You don't want to know that because you might have to replace it depending on the number of people that are in there. For instance, they say the average person uses 10 gallons of water to shower. So if you have a really tiny water heater, this is what they say, just for reference. 1 to 2 people should have a 30-gallon water heater. 2 to 3 should have a 40. 3 to 4 should have a 50. 5 plus people, you need 1 million gallons size water heater. No, like 80 or 50 should be fine, depending. 80 for electric, 50 for natural gas. That's what they say. All right, and here's some questions. This is some questions you may not be able to ask the realtor, real estate agent, or the owner. You're usually not talking to the owner, but maybe you ask your agent or to ask yourself. Just a couple of questions to ask for yourself. For instance, what are the neighbors like? I would drive around and I would actually knock on doors and meet the neighbors to say, hi, I'm potentially buying this house, wondering what you think, or like if you know anything about the area, or what's it like here. Get a sense. If you're going to be there, you're going to have to meet your neighbors anyway. Might as well do it ahead of time. Find out if they're a jerk and you don't want to live next to them. But don't just because you get one little grump next to you doesn't mean you don't buy a house, right? You can still buy a house with a grump next door. Just don't see them. They'll move. How is the neighborhood? Drive around. Get your best guess. You can look up crime stats too in places. I can't legally tell you which spots, but you can look them up. And take from that what you will. There's a lot of sometimes reasons. There's things you need to think about besides just the numbers on what's going on. which is why I just think driving around day and night and a weekend, learn what it's like on your own, right? Any problem neighbors or local nuisances? Some people love to share that. You'll get some neighbors who will talk about other neighbors real fast. And it's good to know who those neighbors are because they're going to be talking about you if they do that. But you honestly, sometimes just hanging out there and driving around, you can figure out who they are. But you might be able to check, depending on your town. Police, what are they, blotters? Is that what it's called? Something like that. Were they the records of what's going on, if calls have been dispatched? And this other question, does this house have any stigma associated with it? Now, like stigma, when we say, usually we're trying not to say the words, but did anyone die here? Did anyone die here? It's not legally required in all states. In Washington State, I don't have to declare if someone died in it. Some states require dying. Some only require it if it was a murder. Excuse me. A murder or a suicide, then they require it. Then you have to tell people. But some states like Washington don't require any of that. Now, if the agent knows, yeah, and you ask them, they have to tell you what they know, but they don't have to volunteer it. Okay. That's, like if it was the scene of anything bad or if it was in a movie, you never know what kind of. And again, just ask people in the neighborhood if they know anything about the house, and they'll if there's a stigma, they've heard of, they'll tell you. Neighbors love to tell you. All right, and then my last question. This question only works if you are able to contact the owner, if you're ever talk to the owner. What do you love most about living here? It's even on, I think, that Zillow's site. When people are trying to sell their own home there, they ask people that. What do they love about living here? And it's great. It's a great perspective to hear from people what it is about that place that makes them love it, and maybe you'll love those things too, or at least know what they were thinking of. That's half the time as a real estate agent, or not as an agent, well, as a homeowner, you're trying to figure out what were they thinking? Why is that? And if you know what they love, like if you know that I love gardening, then you get it. You get why that was done in back, or like, oh, well, they love gardening. That's why. So that's it. That's the program, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're buying a home with Silas Lindenstein. Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, if you're interested in that ebook, or you need to be want to get set up with a real estate agent, a fine real estate agent in your area, either one of those things, give me a call or email me at 206-351-9230. Again, that is 206-351-9230. And and of course, really do appreciate those reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you meant to go do it before, just go do it right now. And get that rating in there, and I can read it and I can be happy. And isn't that something we need this holiday season to make that podcast host happy? Okay. You've been great, folks. I'll see you next time. Until then, happy home buying.